Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from anonymously 10500 and it says, am I the asshole here for kicking out my husband after he went to go see and comfort his ex-girlfriend? And just a couple of trigger warnings before we do get into the story as well. There is threats of suicide within the story, so if you do want to skip it, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. It says, I, 32 female, and my husband, 38 male, have been married for 3 years. Our relationship has had its ups and downs, but we're a relatively happy couple. Though, in the beginning of our relationship, he was also dating Angela, 24 female, 5 years ago. I was unaware of this other relationship, but when I found out, I confronted him, and he told me that since we weren't officially dating, that he didn't know we were exclusive. I told him that if he didn't cut off this relationship with Angela, that I was going to break it off. We left it at that, and we didn't talk for a while, when he came to my apartment unexpectedly weeks later saying it was over with Angela, and that he wanted to try again, and asked me to be his girlfriend. Ever since then, we have been a pretty normal couple. We have our moments, but our relationship is going good, and I believe he is my soulmate. Recently, there's been an issue in our relationship though. Angela. 3 weeks ago, we were out running errands, and we went to a small boba shop that just opened next door to our local grocery store. As we were off to the side looking at the menu, from the corner of my eye, I see a woman that looks similar to Angela walk in. I do a double take, and sure enough, it's her. I feel an intense amount of dread and hope that hubby doesn't see her. As I'm internally panicking, I hear a woman's voice call for my husband. And as you might have guessed, it was Angela. My husband turns around and they have a small but awkward conversation. The whole time I just disassociate and stare off into the distance until she asks my husband, "Is that your wife?" To which he just nods and holds my hand. I pretty much just awkwardly smile and pray this encounter would end the whole time. Eventually, she gets in the line and we wait behind her. I felt so embarrassed. I immediately got our drinks and leave. That was that, until 2 weeks ago, when I saw my husband's phone light up to a Facebook Messenger notification. I asked him who it was from, as he never uses Messenger. He said it was from an old friend. I asked who, and he said I wouldn't know. I became suspicious, but wasn't necessarily worried, because I just assumed it was a friend. Until a few days later when I got another Facebook Messenger notification while I was ordering food off his phone. It was from Angela. I was shocked and confused. I went to their messages and everything seemed friendly and casual. Though because of their history, I felt very uncomfortable with them talking. I went up to him and confronted him about the text and asked why she was texting him. He told me that after running into her, she friended him on Facebook and they began talking. He assured me it was all casual, but I still told him I didn't want him talking to her. He assured me he would stop. I told him to unfriend her, to which he hesitated to, but eventually did. There was no issue or word from Angela until last night, to which from my knowledge she spam messaged my husband and even called him crying, telling him that her mother was sick. I guess he knew her mother and felt sympathy towards her. Angela vented to him about how she had no one and she just needed someone to comfort her. She asked my husband if he would come and be there for her, to which he said yes. I had no idea he was doing this until I saw him putting his shoes on near the door. I asked him where he was going, and he told me the story of Angela's mom and that she needed someone to be with her. I told him not to go, and we had a small argument. He was rushing out the door, so I blocked him in and said that if he was going to see and comfort his ex-girlfriend, that he wasn't allowed back in. He scoffed and pushed past me. I watched as he left. I went back inside, poured a few drinks while I tried my hardest to not cry and blow up his phone. Eventually, 3 hours passed and he came back home. I sat on the couch during this and he came in and I told him that he wasn't allowed to sleep here. He was shocked and we got into another argument, and to cut it short, he told me he had nowhere to go. So I told him that maybe he should go to Angela, as they seem to help each other a lot. He then left again and I haven't heard anything from him. I'm currently staying up and have had a few drinks. I decided to post this on Reddit as I feel like I might have overreacted and been an arsehole. I just need advice on how to handle this whole situation, as I'm barely able to process what to do. I'm sorry if this was long. I needed to vent. Edit. Hi everyone. Goodness, so many of you. Thank you everyone for commenting and your support. I'm going to respond to some comments right now. Small update. I eventually went to sleep and sent a text that I was sick and wasn't coming into work today. It's currently 2 PM where I live and I've been napping and kind of out of it. I haven't heard from him at all and he hasn't come back home. I'm kind of worried as I don't know where he's at. His location has been off since yesterday. I might send him a text later to make sure he's okay. I don't know if this is a good idea as I'm not in the best mindset right now and have been in zombie mode. As of now, I'm trying to process what even happened as it went by so fast. I'll keep you all updated if anything happens. Thank you all again. Them red flags are flagging, right? So he secretly reconnected with an ex, lying to you about who was messaging him, prioritizing her emergency over your very reasonable boundary, and then stayed gone for over 3 hours, and then turned off his location. And you know, if her mum is sick, I do wish her well, but it just feels like that was a manipulation tactic to get him over. It's all way too inconvenient that a couple of weeks ago you bump into her and then suddenly she's back in the picture again. And to me in this, his actions are just speaking volumes right now. But the first commenter says, not the arsehole. Girl, he really pulled the she has no one else card. Like that's your problem. That's an ex, not a charity case. The fact that he hesitated to unfriend her in the first place was already suspect. But running to her the second she called, in the middle of the night? Nah, you didn't overreact. You just set a boundary. And he sprinted right past it like it was the finish line of a marathon. Stay strong because he's acting real comfortable disrespecting you. Opie says thank you for your reassurance. I want to confide in some friends and family, but I feel like that'd make me feel invalidated. I do feel bad for the girl if her mother is sick, but I'm upset that my husband was willing to go. I don't know the full details of the situation with her, as my husband was rushing, so I don't know if she has friends or any other family, but I assume she does, so I don't understand why she went to my husband for comfort. Someone asked OP about Angela and when she discovered the fact that her husband was dating her at the time. OP says, honestly did not know much about this girl. I only knew that he was dating her because he got tagged on an Instagram post of them together 5 years ago. I went on her account and there was nothing about age. I didn't fully stalk her, but I did do enough to see that they were dating and to remember her face. Eventually, that's when the confrontation happened. I never asked about her, and I tried my hardest to not go look at her account. I have self-esteem issues, and I didn't want to compare myself. It wasn't until around we were engaged, I decided to ask him about the whole Angela situation. And that's when I found out about her age. Supposedly the way they met was that she went to his job and strikes up a conversation with him, and she asked to go on a date. She lied to him and she said she worked at the company and said she was 23. They went on dates and after 2 months she confessed her real age, and that she didn't actually work there. She was 19 turning 20. And that she had actually found him by going on apps like LinkedIn to find guys with higher paying jobs. Commenter says, not the arsehole, you married a good man, but he was playing both of you at the beginning. Not a good start. I would normally say you're being controlling, but this is an ex. Not just a female friend, so no. She should be talking to family or an ex that isn't married. Opie says thank you and possibly. I haven't thought that much about our past as it's best not to think about things you can't go back and change. But I'm slowly processing that might have been the case. I personally don't find myself too controlling. Some in the comments seem to think I am, but this was at night and he was meeting her at her home. She also has an ex. And not just an ex, but a girl he was with the same time I was with him. So, sometime later, the OP comes in with their update and says, hi everyone, it's been 8 days since I posted my original post, and I finally have an update for you all. I'm sorry it took so long, but I've been sick. This is going to be long, so I apologize as I have to address a few things. I want to say first thank you to those that gave helpful and supportive comments, and to those who said I drove my husband straight to another woman's arms or I was hostile and controlling. First, if my husband was willing to go to another woman when in an argument with his wife, then is he really my husband? I mean, I have some standards to not marry an awful person. Second, to those that said I was controlling and hostile towards Angela. If you have a partner and are okay with them doing something like this, then that's something within your boundaries, not mine. I don't like having contact with exes or having my husband be in contact with his exes. Finally, the age gap. I explained the story of how they met and such on a comment, but to sum it up, she had originally lied about her age. I didn't know about her age or anything about her until I was engaged. Okay, on to what happened. He eventually came home later that day. I was watching TV on the couch when he walked in. We looked at each other and didn't say anything. He went to our room, took a shower, and fell asleep. I was still upset with him, so I avoided going to check on him or even talk to him, so I waited in the living room/kitchen until a few hours later when he woke up. I decided to make dinner. He came out, sat on the couch, and we ate in silence before he asked if I wanted to talk. I said I did and explained what happened. From what he told me, when he saw her at the boba shop, she had friended him on Facebook later that day. He didn't friend her back though and ignored it, and eventually a few days later, she sent him a message request. This is when he handed me his phone to see the messages. To sum it up, she texted him a few times over a range of days without an answer. From pleasantries, updates about her life, and finally a suicidal message. Now, I don't know what is allowed to be said in the subreddit, but my husband did respond out of worry for another person. Or so he claimed. They talked a lot about her addictions, self-harm, and other very personal things relating to that. Though reading, I did find out she had a boyfriend, and that he was actually 51 years old. My husband calmed her down and they stopped talking for a few days. When she reached out again, and the same thing happened. This repeated again, where he wouldn't respond until she guilted him to. When I'd found out and told him to block her, he actually didn't block her out of fear, but he didn't respond to her messages until that night. She actually sent very concerning messages beforehand and called him on Messenger. He answered and he said that she was wailing and screaming in pain. Now, I don't want to say too much, but she had told him she attempted by taking a bunch of pills because of her mother, which is why he rushed to her. When he got there, he told me she was acting strangely and almost pretending to have done what she did. He tried to get her to the hospital, to which she refused. After pleading for a while, he was getting ready to call 911 when she confessed she didn't actually take any pills. He was confused and asked why she said she did. She couldn't give him a clear answer. My husband was going to leave when she begged him to let her explain again. She said her mum is the only person who cares about her and that she needed somebody with her after she found out she was sick and that she had no one but my husband, and my husband wouldn't come otherwise if it wasn't urgent. My husband wasn't buying it, so he asked if her mum was even sick, to which she denied it but seemed to be lying. My husband then left. He told me he just stayed in his car for a while before coming back home, and that's when the confrontation happened. He said he was very tired and felt horrible, so he wasn't in the right headspace to explain right then and there. He also told me he didn't go back to Angela's but instead just stayed in his car, got food and pretty much wandered town until he got home later that day. After this, I felt very overwhelmed. I usually like to take time to myself to process things before making a decision or response, so I told him I needed time. I didn't interact with him until the next morning and told him I needed more time before talking to him again and was going to stay with my parents for a few days. And now we're here. A few days actually turned into a week because as soon as I got here, I got sick, so I haven't felt good enough to even drive back home, much less process or think much. I secretly don't even know how or what to do. Like, how do we go back to normal? I still feel betrayed, and even though he didn't cheat, I don't trust him. And I don't even know if he's telling the truth. I mean, divorce is extreme for something so minor, but I don't know. I have to go back home tomorrow as I feel a bit better, and I can't hide out here forever. And I have responsibilities, even though it's been nice to escape and being with my family has been great. I haven't talked much to my husband except through text, so tomorrow will be our first face-to-face conversation in a week. So that's the update. What actually reminded me to do this update was I got a random message request on Instagram a few hours ago from a burner account. It's a picture, and I'm kinda scared to open it. I know it's probably a scam thing, but something in my gut is telling me it's connected to Angela, and I don't know if I should open it. Update, so I opened the picture. It's a screenshot from what I assume is Angela's private story of her in lingerie, with a caption that says, "She'll just have to taste me when she's kissing him." The top comments on this one said, well, the good news is that you're not the only one who's been feeling sick lately. The bad news is that it's not just physical, it's also emotional after reading this update. Hang in there, OP. OP says, yes, sadly, curse you germs, but I feel like emotionally, I've been struggling a lot as I don't really know what to do or how to process this. I want to go to my husband and ask for his help like always, but I know I can't. especially if I can't trust his word and I don't know I'll even have my husband soon. I'm very lost. I'm dreading going back home and facing the music. Another commenter says send him the picture and ask what that's all about. Opie says I saved the photo and I'm planning on doing so later tonight. I'm very anxious when it comes to this kind of stuff, so I'm trying to calm my nerves first. Another commenter says he eventually came home later that day. I was watching the TV on the couch when he walked in. We looked at each other and didn't say anything. He went to our room, took a shower and fell asleep. Obviously that part was a quote. And the commenter said, is it normal for him to walk in the house and take a shower in the early afternoonish? I guess based on your timeline. Opie says no, it isn't. He usually showers at night, but he hadn't the night prior, so I assume he just showered because of that. And the OP hadn't come in with an update since then. But it's certainly not looking good at this moment in time, is it? What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit from Swiss913, and it says, Am I the arsehole for asking a woman to turn her phone off speaker at a high-end restaurant? My 50 female, husband 52 male, took my mother and her partner out at a 4-star restaurant. We had just finished our appetizers when the table next to us was seated, middle-aged woman and a teenager. As the woman walked by our table, she had her cell phone in hand, and I quickly realized she was on a phone call and it was on speaker. The other tables around us were also occupied and people at those started turning towards her as the conversation was very loud. The woman and the person on the call were essentially speaking to each other with raised voices. Our entrees were brought out and despite several people around, the woman just kept on going with her conversation. Phone propped up by a water glass while the teenager was on her phone. Here is where I may have been the arsehole. While we were eating, a couple was seated on the other side of the woman and teenager. They sat for a few minutes and when the server came to introduce himself, they asked to be moved to a different table. They clearly said it was because of this woman having a phone conversation. We finished our entrees and were waiting to order dessert. The teen had gotten up from the table. I leaned over and said, "Excuse me, would you mind taking the phone off speaker? It's very disruptive to those around you. Several tables have been staring at you, hoping you would do so." She responded back that, if she were sitting here in the restaurant, you'll be able to hear the conversation. To which I replied, I would certainly hope that you would not be speaking in raised voices if you were sitting 2 feet from each other at the table. She said, "I'm turning it down." I said, "Thank you, because it is very disruptive." At this point she says, "Listen, I'm a grown-ass woman. This is over." I said nothing. We had our dessert and left, and as we were leaving, she said loudly to the person on the phone, "Okay, they are gone. I'm turning this up so I can hear you. Am I the arsehole for asking her to take her phone off speakerphone?" Commenter says, I can't remember who suggested it. It might have been Miss Manners, but the letter writer had written about the same issue on the train. To get their point across, they leaned over to the person and said, loud enough to be heard on both ends of the conversation, "Come back to bed, darling. I'm getting cold." While a fun idea, seriously, let management deal with it. Starks Dawson says, "Ugh, I despise people who use speakerphone in public. We get it. They think they're more important than everyone. I remember I was on a bus one time and some lady was using speakerphone for like an hour. When she got off, someone said, 'There is a God,' and we all laughed our asses off. Speakerphone is for private calls, not for using in public unless there's some rare exception. Not the arsehole." Acrobatic Reality says, "Not the arsehole. I matched the energy. Many years ago, a man was having a loud business conversation on speaker in a public lobby at the YMCA. I'm not even sure why my kids and I were waiting in the lobby. I normally drove. I told my kids they did not need to be quiet and respectful because the man was not showing the same consideration. I encouraged all the rest of the kids to return to their normal activities. Being semi-loud but not particularly rude or bad, it all stopped talking to be respectful of the arsehole on the phone. I loudly told my kids that respect and manners went both ways. The arsehole was angry, but he had to move outside into the cold to continue his call. I taught all of those kids a valuable lesson that day, to stand up to arseholes." Field Sucker says, "Once I was on a bus in London. There was a young woman having a loud and personal conversation on speakerphone. No amount of encouragement to be quieter was effective, so as she stood up to exit the bus, I asked her to turn the sound up so we could continue to hear the explicit details as she walked off the bus. Cue a very red goldfish face. The rest of the bus burst into laughter." Karamis says, "What the fuck is wrong with people? I was in the ER today with my husband for almost 12 hours. ER is full. He was given a bed in the hall. The hall was lined with several other beds. All beds are occupied. The lady one bed down from my husband called her daughter and had the phone on speaker. Mom, we're in that open hallway. I don't need to know about your bowel movements. Please lower your voice and take yourself off speaker for fuck's sake. At what point did it become normal to do this? I mean, it wasn't so long ago I was on a train in like what's considered a quiet carriage, and someone was there with their phone actually on speakerphone having a conversation. The rest of the carriage was quiet, so everyone was listening to this conversation. You just think, what the fuck? But have you ever encountered this before? How did you deal with it? Did you listen in? What was going on? Tell the nosy bastard right here. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.